Welcome back to the first video in the MetroPhotog server series. In this first installation, we're going to be talking all about choosing the right case for your needs and then making sure you have adequate cooling for your components. So again, welcome back to our server series of video. My name is Joe from MetroPhotog.com, and in this video we're going to talk a lot about server cases and choosing the right one for your needs. And then at the end of the video we're also going to talk about cooling. So first off is the case. And now this is the area, one of the areas where I was talking about in the first video. If you haven't watched that first video where I introduced this series, please go back and watch it. I'll put an annotation somewhere here in the video, and then I'll also put it in the description down below, where I talked about that you could swap out components to get some cost savings. And so for your case of your server, you don't have to spend a lot of money on a big expensive server case. There's plenty out there, but you could use a regular tower case. If you have a case sitting in your closet, take it out and use it. And for any other component in this build, you most certainly could take out a computer, an old computer from the closet, and use it. Your Pentium 4s, your AMD 64s, going all the way back to Pentium 3s are supported in a lot of the Linux distributions. So check that out. Make sure the minimum requirements are met by your operating system. We'll talk about that later on. But by all means, pull out older components if you can. And so you could use a regular tower case, you could use a home theater PC case, or you could even use a server case. You have to make sure it's going to fit your budget and what you're looking to use. That tower case is going to be a lot easier to work with, find components for in consumer stores, or if, you know, it depends on where you want to put the server. Are you going to be putting the server maybe in your living room? Is it going to be sitting underneath your TV because it's going to be hooked up to your TV to consume some of that content? Do you want a home theater PC case? Or is it going to be going in a server rack? That would mean that you would need to get a server case with the proper mounting hole system that you have there. So that tower case is going to allow you to use consumer products, cheaper products, whether it be your motherboard, processor, or not specifically processors, but your motherboards and power supplies. And the same thing might be true for the home theater, or for the majority of the time, the home theater PC cases. The server cases, you have to be careful, because with the server cases, you might have to use a server motherboard or a server power supply, depending upon if you get a server case that has hot swappable drive bays in it. You might have to use serial attached SCSI drives, which are much more expensive per terabyte or per gigabyte than, say, a consumer model. So make sure that the system that you're getting yourself into with these cases is going to fit both your budget and your purpose. So that's a big point there. If you're looking for something a lot more lower cost, maybe a smaller tower case is probably the best answer for you. Or, you know, if you're going to be putting it out on the shelf in your living room, a home theater case is maybe what you want to fit into your component rack. And again, like we said before, if you're going to be using it in a server environment, the server case is probably the best for that. So the case that I chose to use for our build is an ARC 3U server case. And the reason why I chose this case, I'm looking down at my notes here, is that it supports the micro ATX and ATX motherboard standard, which is really nice. It means I have a lot of motherboards to choose from. It also supports consumer power supply units, meaning I don't have to buy a very expensive redundant or single power supply to power the whole system, which is really nice. And those power supplies are really good for their purpose, but they can be very expensive. So that's good for us. It also has two really large fans in the front with a cleaner, an air cleaner, which is really neat. And it also has two smaller fans in the back, so I can get that good airflow, which we'll talk about later. The other real reason why I chose this case is because it's a lot shorter in depth, and that's going to allow it to put it on a shelf to my right here, to your left, on a shelf that it's going to fit, and it's not going to be too deep where it's going to be sticking out. So that's another big reason why I chose this case. So I'll put a link in the description, probably to Amazon, so you can check out that case, and as well as the other products we talk about today. Now for cooling, because it is behind me, again going back to that, it's going to be behind me on the shelf. Because it's going to be behind me, I want it to be quiet. And servers typically are not built to be quiet, server cases. Because the typical environment for a server case is going to be a thinner enclosure, right, with a really high density of hard drives, super high powered, processing systems, stuff that creates a lot of heat in those cases. And so to pack it into a small area, you have a very small fan, cheaper quality fans for a lot of these case suppliers. And because the fan is smaller, now it has to spin faster. And so that makes the fans loud. And so typically, like I said, you have a lot of horsepower densely packed. You need a lot of cooling, and that's why you have these really, really loud fans. And so what I chose to do was to completely change out all the fans in my case from the stock fans to Noctua fans. The Noctua fans are, you know, a really well proven performer, very well respected in the industry. A lot of people's gaming PCs, they put in Noctua fans, and they make a full range of fans from 180 millimeters, I think, if not bigger, all the way down to the 60 millimeters and smaller. And they have really nice CPU fans. I mean, just go on their website. I think it's a UK company, and they really make really nice fans. Fans that go into 4-pin, 3-pin, whatever you need for your setup. They also come with resistors to slow them down to make them quieter. Check them out on Noctua, and I'll put a link in the description for them as well. So I'm going to change out all of my cooling so that I can make it quieter and still have the same performance in the fans to make sure that I have enough airflow over all my components. Now, the thing you're going to want to make sure that you have in your case is enough adequate airflow. The worst thing you could have in a computer is dead air. Air that's not moving anywhere, air that is just accumulating temperature and heat and is not allowing your components to breathe. And that's where you're going to have failures on your components. Your components are going to overheat, fry themselves, whatever, and they're not going to perform at their best. It's a basic law of physics that wires, when hot, provide more resistance to the the electrical circuits that are going through them, the electrical signals that are going through them. So we want to make sure we keep them cool and we keep everything running well. Now, you're also going to have to remember that you have a lot of stuff in your case that's going to be producing heat. You're going to have hard drives. You're going to have your CPU. If you're going to be putting a video card in there, if you need that for rendering or whatever, make sure you have proper cooling for all those devices. And another important thing is not only to have that cooling and those fans installed, but also have a plan, a good airflow. Make sure that you're not just blowing into the case or just blowing out of the case. What you want to make sure is you have a good airflow coming in on one side and leaving on the other. So a good, what they call push-pull airflow system. And then with my case, which I'm going to show you, the case will have air coming in the front and then leaving out the back because I have the air cleaner in the front. So two really large fans pushing air over the hard drives, through the hard drives, across the motherboard and out the back. It's also another reason I'm not going to be pulling air from the back of the case is because it's going to be in the cabinet. And so I don't want it to be sucking dust from the back of that cabinet and blowing it out the front or blowing it across the components. So make sure you really think about your cooling. Make sure you think about all your products that are going to be in there, what's going to be causing a lot of heat, and what needs that intention for cooling. So that's the first part of our video series about cases and making sure that it's cool. And the next video is going to be all about power under the hood, what we're going to use for motherboard, processor, and RAM. So make sure you check out that. That's going to be talking about more about choosing those components for your needs. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to check out back for more of these videos. Make sure you like us on Facebook and also follow us on Twitter. Make sure you follow us in those areas because as soon as we put up videos, that's where they go first. They go to Facebook and Twitter, so you'll be right up to speed with us whatever we do. Please like this video if it's helped you out in any way. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below or send them to MetroPhotog.com/contact. There you can fill out the form and it'll put a message right in my inbox. Thanks again for watching. I'm Joe from MetroPhotog.com. Stay tuned to the channel for more videos.